Hello, my name is Dawson, and I would like to welcome you back to Gabagool and 8, and what a special episode. I am ecstatic. I am so excited for this week's episode. Now, don't check the math, but welcome to Gabagool and 8's 100th episode. Thank you. Yes, it is a time for celebration. It is a time for rejoicing. It's a time to look back at a couple years of just high-end, 5-star, top-quality audio entertainment. Now, of course, after last week's episode, I'd like to apologize again. It was embarrassing. Quite frankly, it was disgraceful. I wasn't allowed back into my family home for a minimum of 4 to 5 days. Couldn't even celebrate my own mother's birthday, but let's move on because we have an even bigger celebration on our hands. Now, though this may be a milestone episode, a true benchmark for Gabagool and 8, we're also in a transitional period right now, a transitional phase, as we're not quite set up in the new Gabagool and 8 podcast studios yet. Gabagool and 8 Podcast Central 1 is in flux. I'm recording yet again from my garage, and at least this time, a couple of weeks ago, there were bumblebees in here the size of my fist. No exaggeration. You could watch it on the live. The video's a bit blurry. You can't quite get the scale accurately on the video, but I assure you they were as large as watermelons. So let's get back to the topic at hand. 100 episodes of Gabagool and 8. What did you do with your lives before the debut episode? That's the biggest question we have to answer this afternoon. Not many people can take an upstart podcast with little to no funding and begin building an authentic community. I'm talking putting in the work, putting in the effort, and after nearly 2 years of consistently pumping out top-tier quality episodes and becoming one of the juggernauts of modern podcasts and grow to absolutely dominate any form of competition. It's truly impressive. Now, this isn't the case with Gabagool and 8 or Wes Dawson. I'm just saying not many people can say that. Now, for Gabagool and 8 specifically, we've had some setbacks, but we've also been humbled by our jaw-dropping and exceedingly profitable success. Throughout these 100 episodes, we've had many different themes. We've explored all kinds of ideas and topics. We've had recurring segments and episodes. Hell, we conjured up a 100-foot marshmallow man, blew the top 3 floors off an uptown high-rise, and ended up getting sued by every city, county, and state agency in New York. But I'm telling you, that's an episode on its own. I'll save that for another week. And I think before we get too deep into the nitty-gritty of this week's episode, I'd like to welcome, in many respects, the co-host of Gabagool and 8, or at least the honorary co-host, none other than Mac the Wolfhound. Yes, hello, Mac. It is truly a pleasure to have you back on the show. How have you been? Okay, well, that was a little bit frank. I know we may have dipped on a couple episodes here and there, but I think that's a bit harsh, a little harsh of a judgment for the past season of Gabagool and 8. Well, you roll in cow shit, so, I'm supposed to listen to your opinion? Bad dog, get out of here. Get out of here, bad dog. I had wanted to share a segment here where we listen to some messages from past guests, fans, and friends of the show. But for any longtime listeners, I think you know how usually that ends up going. So I sent out a couple texts to some of my dearest friends, and these were the replies I got. I had texted Kevin Bryan, would you like to be a part of the 100th episode of Gabagool and 8? I'll be happy to compensate you for your time. All I got back was, this is still going. My own son, I texted him, asked him to be here. Well, in fact, I demanded that he be here. He replied kind of accurately, I was never a guest to begin with, and I certainly don't want to be one. Finally, I contacted my own mother. I figured, although, couldn't quite make the birthday, that was, their own decision. Maybe I'll have her on the episode. And she basically asserted that if I make her listen to one more episode, I have to, in fact, move out of her basement. So that's not an option at this point. After 100 episodes of Gabagool and 8, our production team and the writers have noticed kind of a recurring trend. Certain things, certain ideas that have popped up more than once, or at least certain maybe opinions of my own that were noteworthy, something that maybe we could explore again on another episode. So we're not going to go into great detail, but at least I'll list out a few recurring Wes Dawson or Gabagool Nate tropes, if you will. Now, the first one I agree with wholeheartedly is I have a compulsive anxiety worrying about adolescent children huffing paint and causing damage to my yard. Now, this one I contest that I'm constantly leaving messes in my mother's shower. That's a shared shower. I can do whatever the hell I want in there. The third one, no comment. I mentally and physically am abusive to Mac the Wolfhound. You try living with him. Well, this one's just not true. I'm still heartbroken over Julie. That's a goddamn lie. That I have a hard right slant to politics. That's not true. I'm just not some liberal dimwit, okay? I just happen to think the government should be taxing us at a fairly high percentage and not really providing any kinds of services or programs. That's what government is meant to do. And of course, this one I'm fully in accordance with. That in many respects, and basically for any outside party looking in, I am in fact a love guru. Of course, there's a note that Wes Dawson is in deep with some undisclosed dangerous people, with my safety hinging on the success of Gabagool Nate. I beg with you to please listen, like, share, and subscribe. The next one I think was instilled upon me by my grandmother, that dog shit seems to be the worst possible thing to make a comparison to. There's nothing worse than dog shit in my mind, apparently. I worship a god called the Great Lord Shibugamu. I don't care much for religious discrimination. How dare you? My faith and my religion are mine own, and you have no right to point fingers. Nothing gives you the right to judge me. Of course, the events that transpired in the summer of '09, or for any eagle-eyed or, I guess, like, hound-eared listeners, '05, as I believe I've used both years interchangeably. Either way, it was an extremely traumatizing experience that I don't want to talk about. It also made me phobic of wearing blindfolds in public. Wes Dawson has an abnormal preoccupation with either having sex with himself in an alternate timeline or rocking my own clone's world. Hey, facts are facts. I own a walkie-talkie that allows me to communicate with myself in alternate timelines. That's not an observation, that's a goddamn fact, and I say it to everybody I see. Hey, tear apart your kitchen. You never know what's hiding in those walls. There could be some kind of magical communication device or just some crappy old insulation asbestos that now you're going to have to get out of your house. But the last one, honestly, it kind of hurt me personally a little bit, that I have a very poor work relationship with my producer. Ironically, we have a terrific personal relationship, but maybe we do butt heads a bit professionally, but still, I was kind of shocked to read that one, and honestly, Christmas bonuses are going to suck this year. Now, of course, we can't hit a milestone like the 100th episode of Gabagool Nate with at least touching on some of my favorite episodes or segments. Let's see, there's so many out there, I would easily just list episode 1 to 100, because I find each one lifted my spirits, just bettered my life, made me a better human being just from having participated in it. But certainly some noteworthy ones. I'd say we're maybe the Air Bud expose early on in Gabagool Nate's run. The unjust nature of what happened at that Timberwolves game and their state, the state championship. I truly felt it was something, somebody had to say something, and I don't care how long it's been, and I don't care how adorable that golden retriever was. Someone should have put it down. Like, that's what PETA's there for. Come on. Of course, the frequency episodes I certainly enjoyed. With the aforementioned, for lack of a better word, magical walkie-talkies that allowed me to communicate with myself in various points in time. I certainly liked that one. And the ghost hunting episodes, I was quite fond of those. They were adventurous, they were new, they were exciting, and they were just a little bit scary, and I kind of like that. All right, well, before we close off this week's episode, I'll just mention the 100th episode giveaway. All right, so first or only person to send the code G8FORLIFE in a DM message. That's G, the letter 8, the letter 4, Life, L-I-F-E. Honestly, if you couldn't figure that out, I wouldn't send you anything anyway. Before next week's episode, you'll get a special Gabagool Nate care package. This is applicable to residents of Quebec. It's also at my own discretion. if you live out in the boons, or honestly, I'll send it anywhere. As long as it doesn't cost me like $40 in shipping, you'll get it. Nobody sends it. I'll just keep it for myself and plaster my room with Gabagool and 8 merchandise. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. Now, celebrating the 100th episode, I felt we should have just went 100 minutes and see who could tough it out till the end. But instead, I think I will bid you adieu. I will thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your continued support. And just mention that the future of Gabagool, Nate, is somewhat uncertain. Now that we've hit this milestone, I have met certain benchmarks, certain tiers that I had to in order to appease my overlords or the sponsors of the show. Those benchmarks have been met, so now I'm questioning what to do with Gabagool, Nate. Now, I would like to just quietly bleed out in the woods alone in the cold, but we had a couple good themes, couple good ideas in the bank ready to go. So who knows? We may continue the run. We may take a slight break. We may just cancel the whole thing and destroy any evidence of its existence altogether. I guess we'll find out next Wednesday. So my name is Wes Dawson. This has been Gabagool, Nate. I truly thank you so much for your time, for your support. And that's about it. Please listen, like, share, and subscribe. And if I can leave you with one message, I think it would be this.